Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years. Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Mary Kate Karr-Petras, and I'm back again with Gigi Khalsa, Associate Editor with McCall's Quilting. Hello, Gigi.
Hello.
Gigi is here today to show us one of her wonderful original projects. In fact, when you came and interviewed with us couple years ago, you brought your own little portfolio, and this was one of the projects. And
yes.
We loved it. And so you're here today to show us how you made it and to let people know how they can make their own version.
Absolutely.
And what do you call this?
This is called Patternless Flight, and the reason I called it that is because I made it without a pattern. I figured if I was going to make a pattern for this, it would be a series of ridiculous templates, and it would just be really time-consuming to cut out and kind of confusing. And I think I came up with a really good system to accurately cut all the patches that you need, and it's very easy and fun, and I'll show you how to do it.
Fantastic. All right, let's get started.
So first things first, I work off of a graph paper drawing, and each of the lines on this drawing represents a seam. So I've colored in where the black is going to be, and the rest of these are individual strips. So I have 18 strips. And so that I need to select my fabrics for the gradient. So I've done that, and I've selected 18 different fabrics. And if you're anything like me, you'll probably select more than you need and sort of mix and match till you get it exactly right.
Play around.
So once you've figured out your fabrics, you want to cut everything out into 1.5 inch strips because they finish at 1 inch. So I've just cut my strips and laid them out in the order that I want to use them. And I find that a strip from a fat quarter, about 20 to 21 inches, is exactly what you need for all the colors. So working from my drawing, I'm just gonna put this off so I can grab my strips as I need them. Working from my drawing, I'm just gonna start at the top and work my way down to get the strips that I need. So row number 1 and row number 2 are completely solid, so those are done. So I'll just move my strips off to the side. And now we're on row number 3, so we're gonna have to start cutting. So what I do is I literally just count the squares. Each square represents 1 inch, so we're just gonna go ahead and count my squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're just going to cut a 5.5 inch strip because that's what we need for our first section. And this part's really easy. Once we get to the angled cuts, that's where it gets a little confusing. But once I explain it, it will make perfect sense.
Yeah, and you say there's no pattern, but you definitely put some time into designing this. It's not willy-nilly, it's not improvisational.
It is not. No, you need to decide on your design before you start cutting. I mean, you could do the strips and just assume that you're gonna come up with something great, but you wanna plan out your composition before you start cutting.
That's a great way to put it. It's not so much planning a pattern, because like you said, it's the way you do the cuts, you can go along, but you do have to at least get your composition planned.
Absolutely.
Spend some time with that.
Yes, and of course if people want to design their own patterns based on this, it would be great and a lot of fun. So our next one is a black strip, and we've got 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to count this one too, even though it's cut in half diagonally. So we've got 4 inches. So I'm going to cut my black strip at 4.5.
Okay. Now we see a 45-degree angle there.
Yes.
Which you could make half square triangles if you wanted to.
You could do that.
But this is a really lovely way to avoid those extra seams. You get that nice continuous look.
It's really streamlined. And this process, it really makes sense. Once you're going to do a lot of it to make this pattern, so it makes sense.
Okay.
Now, what I do is I use my marks on my cutting mat to line up my strip. So you can see the 1/4 inch dots. My raw edges are touching those all the way around the strip.
Got it.
and then my angle goes this way, opposite of the line that we have printed. So what you want to do is line up the 1/4 inch mark on your ruler with all of the intersections of the inch marks on your mat. So all the way up and all the way down.
Got it.
You want to make sure those intersect.
Okay.
And another thing you can do is use that printed line and sort of line up your perpendicular mark with that. So you'll see that the corner of my strip intersects the 1/4 inch mark, and all the way down this 1/4 inch mark intersects, and that's what you need.
Okay.
And then you just cut off this little triangle.
All right. So
And that's all the waste you have.
And then there's no math.
There's no math. You've already done the math when you did your drawing. So basically now you just have to pay attention to your drawing and make sure that you're cutting the right angle.
Yeah, keep it close at hand, quite literally.
Exactly. That's why I make dots on my drawing and everything, to make sure that I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm at. And so let's do this next one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'll cut my strip at 10.5.
Okay.
Here we go, 10.5. And I'm just gonna do the same thing, except my angle faces the other way. So I need to cut my angle like that. So I'm going to lay my ruler and again intersect the 1/4 inch mark of the ruler with all of the inch marks on the mat. And it looks pretty good. And I'm just gonna go ahead. It's a little awkward with my left hand.
Sure. Just for the camera, would you cut like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'd move it around at home, but so now you have your 2 strips, and the nice thing about this technique is that you don't have dog ears. You just line up your patches and then sew your 1/4 inch seam, and then
And it'll just press open, everything will fit.
Exactly.
And the other nice thing is that you can work with a uniform width of strip throughout the entire thing.
That's right.
You don't have to factor in that extra seam allowance that we normally think of for half square triangles or 45-degree angle
Exactly.
cuts.
And so I guess I want to point out some of the more unusual shapes in this pattern. For example, on row number 15, we've got this half square triangle, literally.
Yeah.
But we've already cut our 1.5 inch strips.
Right.
So if you don't want to cut your 1 7/8 inch strips, you can simply cut, excuse me, I'm going to cut a 1.5 inch square here. And then I'm just going to do the same thing where I line it up with the marks. Make sure that my raw edges are touching all the 1/4 inch marks all the way around. And I literally do the same thing. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but if you've ever made a mistake
No.
in cutting, and you needed, for example, 3 7/8, and you've cut your 3.5 inch strip, it's not the end of the world. You can still use that. You don't get 2 patches, you just get 1. But for this pattern, we really only need the 1. So that's this one, and then you'll cut a corresponding black one to go with that, and sew those together.
Half square triangle unit.
And that's pretty much it. You do the same thing for every single row. You're going to be doing a lot of cutting. By the time you get to the end of the pattern, you'll be an expert at this technique.
And you can play around with it. You can try other color options.
Absolutely. You don't have to do blue. That's what I did at first, but you can do like a little sunset.
Gorgeous.
For example.
For example.
Yeah. So lots of possibilities. Of course, I encourage people to design their own designs as well. But at this point, you may want to pause and sort of sketch out the design if you want to do your own.
Oh, yeah. We'll just
because this is the pattern.
And you blogged about this.
Yes.
On the Inside Quilters newsletter blog.
That's right.
The title of the blog post is Patternless Flight, so you can go and you can search for that if you want to see some of the steps written out. And
it pretty much spells out the same technique, but if you learn a different way, it might be helpful.
Let's take a look at the finished project one more time. because it really is lovely. It's so striking, very original, and again, this technique really opens up a lot of design possibilities for people to take this. All you need is a grid and some strips.
Yep, and this design would really translate well to jelly roll strips, for example, because they're 2.5 inches wide. You could just assume that each square on your graph paper is 2 inches rather than 1.
And you don't have to factor in that extra seam allowance that we normally take into consideration. Fantastic. Thanks again, Gigi, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.